Clicker games, idle games, incremental games. You might know them by several different names, or you might not know them past this. While to most people, clicker games aren't much past clicking on something and having a number go up, there's actually a deep rabbit hole that can lead you to have some of the best experiences in gaming there is. There's a few things that make a good idle game to me. The core mechanic of the game has to be something more than just clicking on something and having a number go up. It should also be simple at a glance. Having dozens of menus pop up at you when you start is jarring and leads to quitting real quick. This video will be a collection of different idle games that I think are head and shoulders above the rest in quality and replayability. Keep in mind your list of games might be different than mine, but these are the ones I chose. Links to all games will be in the description in chronological order. My first and only must-play idle game goes to Cookie Clicker. Now yes, don't click off the video yet just because it's not obscure or anything. It's the godfather of all clicker games, and while the game itself isn't honestly anything incredible now in 2023, it's a game you should play purely based on the impact it's had on idle games and even gaming as a whole to some extent. While the game itself isn't incredible, there's a good amount of lore involved in the game regarding grandmas, so even if you don't play the game, watching some videos on the lore is also fun. All the rest of the games are actually good, other than this cultural impact of a game. Starting with the most famous text-based idle game, A Dark Room is an incredible game overall. There's a story, multiple endings, and gameplay that starts out in a simple dark room and ends up with you conquering a wasteland filled with monsters. There's multiple mechanics ranging from city and resource management to map exploration. It's a perfect balance of simplicity branching out into more complicated game mechanics while still being easy to understand and not too grindy. Overall, A Dark Room is probably a 9.5 out of 10 to me, and I've ended up replaying it more than once over the years. Kitten's Game is a game that starts out similarly to A Dark Room, but quickly focuses on managing a city of kittens and keeping them happy. You employ your kittens to gather a variety of different resources to create new tools and jobs for them, as well as employing scientist kittens to research new technology for you. I would give Kitten's Game an 8 out of 10 for a few reasons, the first being holy shit, it's an idle game about kittens. It's also quite a long game, meaning that you could play it for an extended period of time rather than beating the whole thing in one night. The Gold Factory is a more RPG style idle game, where you start out with just a gold factory unlock that's been overrun by rats. As you progress through the game, you'll buy different swords to take on harder and harder enemies, buy factories to produce various materials and expand your production empire, and also eat plenty of pizza during your journey. This is a pretty short game that can easily be beaten in a night, but holds a lot of content if you're willing to put in the time searching and solving it, such as the cryptic messages the Gold Factory's boss gives you as soon as the game starts. Good luck figuring these out! Overall, Gold Factory is also an 8 out of 10 for the simplicity, the comedy, and the puzzles found throughout the game. Keeping with the style of the Gold Factory, our next category of RPG style games will start with Soda Dungeon, specifically the first one. This game can be described as your favorite soda-guzzling auto-battler RPG. You start by hiring some soda-addicted hooligans from the local soda tavern and send them off to fight, where they promptly get defeated. As you progress, you find and buy new armors, weapons, and shields, and find new soda drinkers to hire. You'll meet new companions who offer you a variety of services, ranging from a blacksmith to buy and sell gear, a wizard to warp you new places, a banker, and several others. Overall, I would give Soda Dungeon a 9 out of 10 for the fantastic pixelated graphics, great writing, well-balanced items and characters, other than the healer, even though it's probably the second closest game on this list to not really being a real idle game. Trimps is likely the game in this video that has the most content. Scratch that, by far the most content. Another game in this list has longer playtimes, but from what I gather, people that play Trimps and have 3,000 plus hours are still discovering new game mechanics regularly. To me, it's summed up well in this review by a person with over 2,000 hours. Do not load up this game. It will consume you. Eat your time and dopamine receptors for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But if you're one of us sad sacks who enjoy idle games and time wasters, then you've just found the best one out there. Best bang for your buck too. This game will never ask you for a cent in any boost in the game. You can, but you don't have to. I've spent so much time in this game. Got a friend hooked on it. We created odd, unintelligible lingo, like making sure to squad in the DXH pattern to maximize the lifespan of each trim stack, racing each other to each new achievement or unlock, of which there are never-ending quantity. Good game. This review is followed by this as a close second. Monkey brain like number go up. Personally, I've tried playing it for maybe around 100 hours, and while it's a good game, it does get quite repetitive after a while. Or I'm not understanding something, but I'm not going to spend another 4,000 hours to figure that out. Overall, 6 out of 10. NGU Idle is the game that I mentioned that has more hours than Trimps. 16,000 hours on record. It's okay. 13,500 hours on record. I'm free! 15,500 hours on record. Numbers. And this one that I think sums it up best. 18,500 hours on record. I would have loved a 4th difficulty. It felt a bit short as is. The game itself, from my meager, once again, about 100 hours, plays similarly to Trimps, but there's so much content that I can't really explain it here in this video. The time I spent playing was fun, leveling up my character and finding new gear to equip by killing baddies. Overall, 6.6 out of 10, because I like the reviews more than Trimps. Idle Sword is a game in a similar vein to Soda Dungeon. You control a hero, not really, he kinda just vibes, that goes into dungeons and defeats monsters that drop gold and equipment, allowing you to get stronger and progress further. The further you get, you can find different companions that offer different styles of attack depending on how you want to play. All levels and drops are randomly generated, so no 2 runs even in the same dungeon will feel alike, leading to a lot of replayability without it feeling stale. You also control your mouse cursor, which acts as a hand of God, being able to deal chip damage to enemies and heal your party. Quick side note, I found out later while recording that apparently there's a legendary drop in one of the later areas called the Wrath of God, which, I don't know, thought it was interesting. Alright, back to the video. Overall, it's a really fun game if you're the kind of person that loves looting enemies and finding out what new equipment does, and how much more damage a +2 dragon staff with 3 combination slots does compared to a +1. 7 out of 10. Moving on from the bouncy physics of Idle Sword, we have the he-who funny physics section, kicked off by Idle Bouncer. The key idea of the game is to lift up a ball and drop it. The higher up it was, the more energy you generate. The game emphasizes a loose idea of math and formulas with the very simple graphics and various quote-unquote real-life-esque upgrades you can get, such as ball density, gravity strength, and how bouncy the balls themselves are. Also, it's literally a game where balls go bounce, so brain go peanut. The prestige system, which almost all good idle games should have, is well done and fits the game style well. Overall, 7 out of 10. Our next game is something you've almost certainly heard of and even played, Learn to Fly 2. One of the goats of Flash games, something we all played on our school computers growing up. Now you might be wondering, hold on, why is it on this list? I mean, technically, by my standards, Learn to Fly is essentially an idle game. You repeat a simple task over and over and gain some sort of points to buy upgrades to do that task better. For those that didn't have a childhood, Learn to Fly 2, and the other Learn to Fly games as well, are about a penguin, a flightless bird, becoming able to fly primarily by strapping on a rocket booster and a glider to him. As he flies further, the penguin encounters obstacles that he can choose to fly over or smash straight through, with the final goal of the game being to destroy the wall. Fantastic game, 10 out of 10 for nostalgia, and 8.5 out of 10 as an idle game. Incremental is an idle game based around the theme of pinball. You play a pinball machine and get points each time you hit an object, eventually being able to buy unique upgrades such as areas that give multipliers, multiple lives, and automatic flipper controllers. There's 5 levels of prestige that each give unique bonuses and unlock new mechanics, capping off with a mystical pinball wizard offering you the transcendent pinball mana in return for your corporations and wealth. Overall, 8 out of 10. The next 2 games on this list I'll be talking about almost at the same time. Peggo is an idle game based around the concept of the game Peggle, or more simply, pachinko. You drop balls and hope that the pegs bounce the balls further to the far left or far right to get as much of a multiplier as possible. There's several upgrade trees with dozens of upgrades each, and getting more and more balls on a bigger and bigger pachinko board is very satisfying. You can eventually get hundreds of balls dropping at the same time on a board several times the size of the original. It's even been reviewed by Bennett Foddy, the creator of Getting Over It. There's just one issue with the game.
Money for an idle game? Yuck!
Anyway, here's a free version. Incremental is an idle game based around the concept of Okay, yeah, we already heard this spiel. The core concept of the game is similar to Peggo, and while you can't get quite as many balls, you can still get plenty. There's less upgrades, but most of the upgrades that are there are rebuyable, like upgrading your multiplier from 2x to 3x to 5x. There's also several different types of balls you can unlock as you progress throughout the game, starting with gemstones and moving on to things that you'll have to find yourself. Pego and Incremental are both quite short games, but very well done. Both Pego and Incremental get an 8 out of 10 for fun and well done concepts. This section is for games that I thought are also great, but don't really fit into any of the previous 3 categories. The first game I'll cover is the shortest game in this whole video, Incremental. The dev himself says this game should take around 30 minutes to beat, and I'm inclined to agree, since every time I've played it, it's been almost exactly that. An extremely simple game about placing squares on a 5x5 grid that each have different properties, with some interesting scaling of prices. The first 6 cost $20, then 100, 1,000, 125,000, a million, and 20 whole million. The last one has a little bit more of a jump, costing a quadrillion. While this seems like a stretch, it's reasonable once you figure out what each of the special properties of the boxes are. Overall, 7 out of 10. The next game on our list is Coinbox Hero. This is another game with nostalgia similar to Learn to Fly, albeit not nearly as much. The game is set in Germany, where you're introduced to Polka and Coinbox. The goal of the game is simple. Get rid of Coinbox while making as much money as possible. There's a variety of different ranged and melee weapons to unlock and try to figure out the best gain of coins per second, as well as a few stats to help out your movement, or to make your weapons incrementally more powerful. It's an extremely simple and charming game with satisfying coin physics and well done art. Overall, 8.5 out of 10. Crafting Idle Clicker is a game about crafting.
Shocking!
You start out chopping and selling wood to make a profit, before unlocking the recipe for a wooden club, which costs wood to make and sells for a much bigger profit. You continue throughout the game, unlocking new materials and recipes for armors, weapons, and other items to make a profit. There is, as far as I can tell, much more to do in the game, past just selling and crafting the items. But honestly, the rest of the game didn't appeal to me nearly as much as the core mechanic, but there's still a good 10 to 15 hours of fun and reasonably balanced gameplay just using that. And for the price of free, that's pretty good. One of my main complaints is they've solved abusing the game with an auto-clicker, so that immediately is going to dock my rating at least a bit. Still, overall, 6 out of 10. Reactor Idle is a game about building nuclear reactors and obtaining energy. You start off the game with simple windmills that just generate clean energy that you can sell to buy yet more windmills. As you continue placing windmills, you'll quickly get enough money to buy a research station, the birthplace of all future upgrades. You can unlock some upgrades for the wind turbines, and as you eventually get enough research for the next type of power, you unlock solar cells. Solar cells don't just produce clean power, but produce heat which must be converted to energy using generators. Make sure not to let your generators overheat, because first your generators will explode, and then... yeah, not great. You can unlock 8 different islands to expand your energy production and many different types of generators, research centers, and most importantly, heat producers. This is the first and last game on the list where I think I'm genuinely not smart enough or good enough at managing buildings to progress further than around the 4th island. Puny Monkey Brain just want number to go up, but while I can't figure out how to get further, it's been done many times, so it's essentially a skill issue. Great concept, great execution, beautiful game. 9.5 out of 10. Well, that about wraps up this video. Thank you guys very much. Wait, hold on. Sorry guys, I gotta take this, my lawyer. What do you mean I'm going to court? There's a game that would be criminal to not have included in this list? You're right. This video is not over yet. We have one more game to cover, the game that in my mind is the king of all idle games. And that game? Prestige Tree. Prestige Tree is an idle game with a very unique concept of prestige. When you start out the game, you just have the first blue prestige point circle unlocked as well as your default points at the top. If you click on the prestige point circle, you can start getting upgrades that passively increase your regular point gain. Get enough upgrades and wait a bit and you'll get enough points to get one of the second layer circles, either a booster or a generator. each of which give you a different multiplier to your base points. This is where Prestige Tree's unique aspect of Prestige comes in. Prestiging something on a lower layer resets all layers above, but don't reset other circles on the same or lower layers. For example, if you prestige your booster, your points and prestige points reset, but your generators won't. After picking one, the price of the other increases, so you have to get a few more boosters or generators until you can unlock the other. Once you do, the price to get more goes back to what it was for the first one you unlocked, allowing for some more quick progression. After you get a certain amount of boosters or generators, you unlock a milestone. Milestones are essentially upgrades that don't go away if you reset that layer. If you get the 8 booster milestone, you keep your prestige upgrades when you prestige boosters, and it works in advance, meaning if you were at 7 boosters and prestige to get one more and unlock the milestone, you would keep your prestige upgrades on that reset. A lot of the milestones are very quality of life upgrades, like my favorite one, the second milestone in the generators, gain 100% of prestige point gain every second. Unlocking that milestone for me was when this game went from a pretty good idle game to one of the best. You no longer have to reset for prestige points, and your production of generators and boosters skyrockets. Some of the milestones later on allow you to keep milestones after you reset lower layers, buy upgrades automatically, or even have certain layers not reset anything. After a bit longer, you'll reach the 1 to the power of 120 points needed to unlock the third layer, which has 3 circles to start with. Not all circles are immediately visible, as there's 2 more circles in the third layer that you unlock later. The further down the tree you go, the easier it becomes to get back to where you were when you prestiged. This is the game on this list that to me has the best concept and style. I love the bifurcating layers of prestige and how it's a very active idle game rather than having to sit and wait for the next upgrade. Now, if I was rating just this game, Prestige Tree by Jacob, it would definitely get at least a 9.5 from me, but that's not all I'm basing my review on. There's actually a vast modding scene for the game due to Akameda, a member of the community, creating an open source, easy to edit version of the original Prestige Tree called the Modding Tree. The modding tree on its own is essentially the same as Prestige Tree, but the different mods that are all playable in your browser by going to the URL, same as any other browser game, are what makes this game a masterpiece. There's hundreds of mods, with some being not great, but a lot of them being comparable to the quality of the original or even being better than the original. I'll give you 2 recommendations. The Game Dev Tree is a version of the game where you're a lazy developer who starts working hard but quickly gets tired and works slower. The goal of the game is similar to the first one, but with a completely revamped upgrade and point system, allowing for a fresh take on the original. The Multi-Tree is a mod with a different end goal than the first 2. Rather than focusing on getting to the bottom of the tree and calling it a day, you actually end up doing that in about an hour, with the actual goal being to upgrade the tree itself until you unlock the ability to buy other trees and go to those. You play through several different trees, upgrading them all individually as you go. These are just a couple of my favorite mods, but there's hundreds more in the Modding Tree Discord, which I'll link in the description. There's easily thousands of hours of fun and new gameplay for you to explore, although I recommend you play the original first just to get a feel for the game. Prestige Tree, as my favorite idle game and one of my favorite games of all time, gets a 10 out of 10, with almost no flaws to speak of from me. This time for real, thank you guys very much for watching my list. It took quite a while compiling all the different clips and learning a few new editing techniques that I used in the video. While it was a lot of work, idle games are something I'm pretty passionate about, so making a video covering my favorite ones was really fun to make. Also, for my next video, I'll be switching to Adobe Premiere, so some of the editing might be a bit janky, but I'll try my best. Thank you once again for watching, and have a good one.